Good day to you all. I am Beatrice Rosecrans Cheney Leavens, wife of Walter Price Leavens, or Puffer Leavens, as his friends called him. Why he was called Puffer is a fascinating story. Puffer was different from Mama and Papa and their families. Though his family had a pedigree that far outshone mine, it didn't matter to him. Mother's family, the Rosecrans, buried over here, were much richer than most. My Aunt Caroline even met and married the famous artist Elihu Vedder, and they spent their life together in Paris. Elihu Vedder was most famous for the 55 illustrations he painted for Edward Fitzgerald's translation of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Father's family, the Cheneys, were also very well off. My father was Albert Nelson Cheney, and Mama was Mary Louise Rosecrans. In my family, there was my sister Anne and I. When I was born in 1875, Papa was working as the superintendent of an ironworks in Olmstedville up in Essex County. He had tried his hand at other occupations, including journalist and printer. But after Olmstedville, he came to Glens Falls and became a New York State fish culturist. By the time I was 21, I was looking for someone to take care of me. Someone with the kind of money that Mama and Papa had, but who might be more willing to spend it on me. Into my life came Walter Price Leavens. Why he was called Puffer by his friends, I had no idea. Puffer's family traced from he was very handsome and very active in the community. His family was traced to the 1680s in Killingly, Connecticut, and they lived there or in Lake Luzerne for over 6 generations. His papa, Jeremy, was related to the Rockwells, and his mother was a Kip, Elida Kip. When Puffer was 17 in 1888, he came to Glens Falls to be educated at the Glens Falls Academy. He lived at the time with the Episcopal rector and his wife. After 3 years of study, he landed a job in Louis Jouvet's clock shop. Monsieur Jouvet had invented one of the most unusual clocks ever made, the globe clock. If one were found today, it would be a very rare and valuable antique. The globe would rotate once every 24 hours, and with the dial set in the North Pole, the correct time could be determined for any place on Earth. Though Puffer found his work interesting, he wasn't always reliable. He was very impulsive. He would drop everything at a moment's notice to go trout fishing in Minerva. In June of 1894, he invited me to go on a trip up Prospect Mountain, a moonlight excursion. Mama, more than Papa, was concerned about the lack of chaperones and what Walter might be planning in the moonlight. Her feathers were soothed when she found out there were over 50 of us going to be attending. That was the first of many lovely dates and excursions. And on September 14th, 1899, we were married at the home of my Aunt Julia Cheney and her husband, B.B. Fowler, on Warren Street. The house was festooned with flowers and plants, and many important people from across the state were there. Gloucester's orchestra played for dancing. Aunt Julia and my cousins made everything so wonderful for me. The next morning, we, the happy couple, took the morning train, and we took the luxury ship, the Bremen, to Southampton, and on to London, Paris, Switzerland, and Italy. In Rome, we even stayed with my Aunt Caroline and Uncle Elihu, and they presented us with a beautiful small painting he had done for us. It was a lovely tour of Europe. When we returned to Glens Falls, we rented a lovely apartment at 224 Glen Street on the corner of Notre Dame. We started planning for a house of our own, but it would take a few years because Walter's work took center stage. Walter was now the secretary and treasurer of the Joseph Fowler Shirt and Collar Company of Glen Street. Work at the factory was not always easy with 800 employees. There were always gripes and upsets. In December of 1900, the shirt ironers went on strike. This small group of 27 men and 10 women refused to fold shirts, refused to work on any machine-made bosom shirt, wanted fair division of damp work, refused any responsibility for shirts left in the boxes after the shift, and demanded recognition of the union. Well, Mr. Fowler and Walter refused their demands. They even had to advertise in Troy for more ironers to keep the company going. It was very upsetting. The Joseph Fowler Company was one of the oldest established shirt and collar companies in northern New York. It was founded and conducted for many years by Joseph Fowler. And Charles Fowler, in 1893, decided to convert it to a stock company, and Walter became one of the 3 primary stockholders. This position became very important in 1902, April 27th, when a big fire broke out in the basement of Webb Brothers' store. Webb Brothers and 13 other companies were located on the ground floor beneath the factory. All the businesses were lost. Glens Falls was thrown into a turmoil. Over 1,000 people were out of jobs. Even the trolley line was down because they had to cut the wires to get close enough to fight the conflagration. Damage, mostly covered by insurance, was over $500,000. Walter was very upset, of course, but because of the general downturn in business, it was decided it was a good time to dissolve the corporation. He and another stockholder, J.R. McMullen, decided to join together. They would take over the shirt business and leave the collar business to the Fowler sons. This proved to be a very smart decision because, as you know, shirts with collars grew in favor, and the collar companies struggled and finally went out of business. J.R. and Walter were also smart enough to take a copy of the customer list with them. They called upon Glens Falls architect Ephraim Potter to design a new building on Lawrence Street, right across from the new Glens Falls train depot. The building would be the first thing that people would see, visitors to the area, when they departed the train. Work went smoothly, and within a year, over 700 people were working the factory, and the first shipment of shirts, 34 shirts, was sent to the Mandel brothers in Chicago. Money started to flow, and property for our home was purchased. Work went smoothly, and the home was completed by November 1904. Our address was 334 Glen Street, on the northern corner of Horicon. We had a beautiful yard with a nice setback from the road, and the house still stands to this day. We installed an iron fence. Our nearest neighbors were the Martin Wilmarths, Byron B. Fowler, Hugh and Samuel Lavery, and the George Tates. We were very close to Crandall Park, and we enjoyed our many years there. In 1905, I was so excited about the birth of our first child. We had moved into the perfect house. Walter was making a wonderful income, and it was time for our family. In April of 1905, little Mary Louise was born. But sadly, she only lived 8 days. She is buried here. See her little grave? I was very upset, but Puffer was more optimistic and stuck right by me. And in July 1908, our own Caroline was born. She was everything a baby should be. She was robust and healthy, and our family was finally ideal. In 1910, J.R. and Walter paid off the mortgage on the building. At that time, the business was purported to be worth $12 million. $12 million! Even the Rosecrans and the Cheneys had to take notice. He bought us a summer home on the lake, which we really enjoyed. Walter passed away suddenly in 1922 at age 51. We were devastated. The town was devastated. The Glens Falls Country Club even dedicated its new entryway to him, and his name is still inscribed on the stone edifice, erected to the living memory of Walter Price Leavens from his friends. He would have loved that. Caroline was only 14 years old, and she was beside herself. I spent the rest of my life taking care of her, looking out for her. She went to the Catherine Gibbs School in Boston and married Hubert Cunningham Brown. They had a son, Andrew, whom I adored. I moved up Horicon a few doors to number 10, and I lived there till I passed away in 1937. I was 62. I lived a life of privilege with a wonderful, humorous man. I missed Puffer, my Puffer. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you why he was called Puffer. It seems he was born without an eardrum in one of his ears, and he could blow cigar smoke out of it at will. Who could not love a man like that? Thank you, and good day.